It was well past midnight, and Jason was driving alone on a desolate highway that stretched endlessly into the darkness. He was returning from a work conference, eager to get home, but exhaustion had begun to weigh heavily on him. The hum of the engine and the rhythmic thrum of the tires on the pavement were lulling him into a dangerous haze. His gas tank was nearing empty, and his phone's GPS showed the nearest gas station was still 20 miles away. With no other option, Jason pressed on, glancing nervously at the fuel gauge as it dipped closer to the red. Finally, he spotted it. A lone gas station, its fluorescent lights flickering in the distance. It sat at the edge of the woods, its peeling sign reading, "Last stop gas and go." The station looked old and abandoned, but the pumps were lit, and a faint glow emanated from inside the small convenience store. Relieved, Jason pulled in and parked near the pumps. As he stepped out, the cool night air sent a shiver down his spine. He noticed how eerily quiet it was. No crickets, no rustling of leaves, just an unsettling silence that seemed to swallow every sound. The pump didn't have a card reader, forcing him to go inside. The door creaked as he pushed it open, and a small bell jingled overhead. The store was dimly lit, the shelves sparsely stocked with dusty cans and faded packaging. Behind the counter stood a man, his back turned, hunched over something. Hi, Jason called out. "I need to pay for gas." "Pump 2. The man didn't move. Jason cleared his throat. "Hello." Slowly, the man turned around, and Jason felt his stomach tighten. The attendant's face was gaunt, his eyes sunken and lifeless. He wore a tattered uniform with a name tag that read Earl. "You're a little late," Earl said, his voice low and gravelly. Jason forced a smile, trying to shake off the unease. "Yeah, long drive. Can I get 20 on pump 2? Earl didn't respond immediately. Instead, he stared at Jason, his lips curling into a strange, almost knowing smile. Finally, he nodded and rang up the purchase. "Be careful out there," Earl muttered as Jason handed him the cash. Jason didn't reply. He just wanted to fill up and leave as quickly as possible. As Jason stepped back outside, he noticed something odd. His car headlights, which had been shining brightly when he parked, were now flickering. "Great," he muttered, walking toward the pump. But as he began fueling, he felt a prickling sensation at the back of his neck, like he was being watched. He turned, scanning the empty parking lot and the dark woods beyond, but saw nothing. The feeling didn't go away. He hurried to finish pumping and was about to get back into his car when a low growling noise froze him in place. It came from the woods, deep, guttural, and inhuman. Jason's eyes darted toward the tree line, his heart pounding. In the dim light, he could just make out a pair of glowing eyes staring back at him. He jumped into his car and locked the doors, fumbling to start the engine. The growling grew louder, and the figure in the woods began to move. As the car roared to life, Jason sped out of the gas station, his tires squealing on the asphalt. Relief washed over him as the gas station disappeared in his rearview mirror. But it didn't last long. A mile down the road, his headlights illuminated a figure standing in the middle of the highway. Jason slammed on the brakes, the car skidding to a halt. It was Earl. The gas station attendant stood there, unmoving, his hollow eyes fixed on Jason. "What the hell?" Jason whispered. Before he could react, Earl raised an arm and pointed toward the woods. Jason's gaze followed, and his blood ran cold. Dozens of figures emerged from the trees, their eyes glowing in the dark. They moved unnaturally, their limbs jerking and twisting as if controlled by invisible strings. Jason threw the car into reverse, but before he could escape, his engine sputtered and died. The fuel gauge still read full. Panic set in as the figures closed in, their guttural growls echoing in the night. Jason scrambled out of the car and ran, darting into the woods in a desperate attempt to lose them. The forest was a labyrinth of twisted trees and thick underbrush, and Jason's breath came in ragged gasps as he sprinted through the darkness. The growls and footsteps behind him grew louder, closer. He tripped over a root and fell hard, pain shooting through his ankle. Crawling to his feet, he realized he was surrounded. The figures formed a circle around him, their glowing eyes piercing through the dark. Among them stood Earl, his smile wider and more grotesque than before. "You shouldn't have stopped," Earl said, his voice echoing unnaturally. Jason's screams were swallowed by the night. The next morning, a truck driver passing by the gas station noticed Jason's car parked by the pump. The station looked as it always had, old, worn down, and deserted. The trucker stepped inside, curious, and saw a new face behind the counter. A young man with tired eyes and a name tag that read Jason. "Pump 2, the trucker said, placing some cash on the counter. Jason smiled faintly and rang up the purchase. "Be careful out there," he said, his voice low and gravelly. Hope you liked the video. Make sure to subscribe for more.